Hello everybody, welcome to IT Skills channel. In today's video, we're going to take a look at something that is interesting, and that is Cisco ASA 5525. This is what we're going to do with our ASA. We're going to try to have a proper firewall. We're going to try to connect our AT&T cable modem into ASA, so that way we can actually have some type of firewall rules, some type of routing, static routing, some type of private IPs. We're going to do all of it. So, but ultimately, before we get started of it, this is the ASA 5525. This is what it looks like, the front of the ASA. So the front of the ASA looks like this. You have over here a disk. You have like 120 gigabyte actually, of SSD. Depending on where you buy this from, they may have less storage. And this is obviously from eBay. I purchased this from eBay, and so it's really nice. And this is where you can see the status indicator, what's going on with it. And then this is what the back looks like. So the back, there's a couple interesting. Obviously, here's your power for the ASA to power on. This is your fan, and then this is where you have your 8 ports. So you have 8 ports. All these are your ports. Ports to configure. And then you also have this one is dedicated to management only. So let me actually change the color to red for this one. So this is your management port. So this is your management port, and then you have also have your console port. So let's see here, the console port. This is for your console port / serial port. So console port / serial. So that's what you got going on so far. And obviously here's your indicator for power. So this is all the status indicator for what's going on with ASA. So this is your status. And so that's what we got going on. So our goal is to configure this one. Usually the ports are going to be labeled as a G 0/0 for what 0 port 0, and then port 1 is gonna be G0/1, and then port 2, obviously the name, the team by now, G0/2, port 3 G0/3, port 4 G0/4, and then port 5 G0/5, and you get the idea. So G0/5 or 6 rather. So he has a total of 8 ports starting from 0 to 7. So that's what we got going on. And obviously here is also USB. You can configure with the USB, maybe collect some diagnostic log or add an image to change the ASA firmware version or add new features to it. But that's what we got going on with our ASA. And what we're going to now take a look at is our diagram to how we can configure this port. For example, how we can configure port G0/0 or port 1 or port 2 or port 3. We're going to have to diagram this ahead before we configure, because the biggest mistake we make as an IT sometimes is we configure things, especially when you're doing this for production. You don't want to just do it, configure like that. You want to be able to have a plan in place. The plan is basically to have a diagram, so if somebody comes behind you, they'll be able to help you if you have a problem, or if you are just decided to leave the job, they can actually help take over the job. So that way you don't have to be having to explain it for hours and hours what's happening. So right now let me take a look at our diagram. So let's go ahead and open a browser. So here is our diagram right now. So like I was telling you earlier, we have a couple scenarios that we need to deal with. We're going to have to connect our ASA to our AT&T modem. So we have AT&T modem, and it's going to give us a private, public IP address of that, and that's the DNS it's going to give us, and it's going to give us a public gateway. So all this is public stuff, and then this is going to go to our Cisco ASA firewall, and then on the ASA firewall, we're going to configure port G0 or port 0 to actually get it from DHCP from the WAN. So we're going to not try to do statically, because I find that doing it statically could actually cause a lot of issues. So we're going to try to configure, port 0 to be static DHCP, so you can get a DHCP address from the WAN. After that, we're going to have to configure port 1, which is G0/1 to this address over here, 10.1.1.1, address, and then with a subnet /24. And all this subnets I'm using is going to be /24. I love /24s. I'm going to use that. And then after that, if we got good and we like how we think is going on, we're going to go ahead configure port 2. Port 2 is going to be Nutanix, specifically my Nutanix server, which has 3 nodes cluster, as you've seen in the channel before. We're going to specifically create a dedicated channel for the Nutanix, so we can apply custom firewall rules and everything else. So this is what we're going to be doing ultimately. And then if everything works in here, we're going to configure additional, port in port 3, which is 10.1.10.10.10.1, with a /24 subnet again. After that, if that's all great and works well the way we want to, we're going to configure our ASDM. ASDM right now is configured with the default IP address already. We're going to change that to this custom IP address, and that's going to be on port. I have to change the port. This is exactly not going to be that port. ASDM is going to be this port over here. Let me type in the port. M0/0. So it's going to be the management port. That's what the management port is going to be for our ASDM. And I already put it up there, so you can see over here. I already put it up there. And then after that, if we're still doing great, this is going to be obviously a serious video. It's not going to be done all at once, because otherwise it's going to probably take 3 hours or more. So we're going to do it in gradual phases. So after that, we're going to configure our port 4. We're not going to configure port 5. That's plenty for us, And so if we need port 5 or port 6, we can exploit it later on. But right now, we don't need to configure all those ports. So we're going to leave 3 ports empty. Port 5, port 6, port 7 will be empty. And so we're going to configure everything else. So, but right now, to summarize what we got going on, so you guys understand and stay in tune with it, this is our starting point. We're going to connect to our ASA 5525. So that's what we're going to be connecting with it, our ASA 5525. And then after that, we're going to go make sure the DHCP is received. If it's received, we're clear, we're successful. That means we can do the rest. But if you don't get DHCP on port 0, then we have a problem. When I mean by port 0, I mean by G0. So that's what we're going to do. So let's get started and get going. So the first things first, I'm going to connect to my other laptop that has a console connected. So console is really needed. This is my other laptop. And then I'm going to go ahead, pull up the PuTTY. So to connect, if you never connected to ASA before, and I reckon if you're watching this video, you probably need to see that. So I'm going to show you a couple things to get started with it. The first thing you need is actually a cable, in the sense of you need a cable. Let me go back actually and show you what you need. So yeah, this is what we need right now to be able to get started if you don't have this already. So I have my console cable. This is what's going to there. This port is going all the way to the console over here. And then we're going to plug this part into the laptop over here. So we're going to plug this into the laptop USB. So laptop USB port. So that's what we're doing. Once you have that in handy, you're going to have to go to your control panel and then look for a device manager. and then after that you need to figure out whether that console cable is detected, because the console cable, unlike, so here is, you have a console port 3, and then from that point on, if you are, if you haven't configured PuTTY, you're gonna come over here, and you're gonna come over here, type in serial, and you're gonna have to don't change anything other than the serial, of the console, the serial port. So you're gonna have to come over here to control panel, see it says COM port COM3. So we need to change the PuTTY to COM3, and once we do, we just hit OK or open, and then once you open it, it will open the default setting, and you're gonna see here it's already being used. Obviously, access denied, because I have it open in the other side over here. I already have it open here, and you can see it's open with COM3. So that's how it is. So let me go ahead and actually, I was gonna show you a couple of things over here, but right now we're gonna actually close it and connect it again, just so you can see it over here. I want to make sure this is not a shortcut video, so you guys can see all the things I had to do. So here, this serial, and we're gonna go ahead and type in COM3 and hit open, and that's what it's gonna look like when you do it. Once you do it, I'm gonna go full screen here. You have to hit enter, and then it tells you here Cisco Ambiguous command. So you have to type in enable if you haven't logged in for the first time. And in this case, I'm already logged in. You can see I'm already in config T. If I'm not in config T, then it was gonna actually be having me do that. So let me go ahead. If I hit exit right now, and so I only have the management IP configured, and that's a default IP, and so I can change that later on, which we will do. But right now, my main thing is configuring our DHCP for port 0 on G0/0. So that's what we're gonna do. And if we go ahead, and I have another command that we can run here, show interface IP brief. If I type that command here, and you can see here, this is what shows up over here. So right now, G0 does not have any IP assigned at all, and it's also down. That means it's not connected. It's not turned on. The port is actually, protocol is actually not turned on. So once I turn on the port, and then I, connect to the right, uplink port from the WAN to the port, we should be able to get DHCP. And after that, we're going to configure it. So we can see here we have a lot of things to do, and I'm ready for us to do it. Right now, the only thing that's up is the management, because this is up by default. I had to reset the switch or the ASA to factory default. So this is by what it showed up as a default. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead, type in interface G0/0. Hold on 1 second. Let me take a look at it so we can show you here. So we're gonna configure interface G0/0 to the default DHCP. So that's what we're gonna do next first. So we're gonna come back here. Oh, I type in the wrong command, so we have to type in G interface G0/0. So that we're now in G0/0, we're gonna name the port name if outside, and this is where spelling comes in handy. And I'm typing with one hand as I'm holding the other hand in the microphone. So we're gonna name this outside. So by default, if you name this and you don't have anything configured by default, it will set this to 0 by default, the security level to 0. And then after that, we're gonna go ahead and actually do the rest of it. So security level, we don't have to worry about it. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna enable the port by typing no shut. So that's it. It's set to no shut. And then the other thing we're gonna do is IP address set route DHCP. So that's what we're going to type. If I type the command right, we should be getting a DHCP soon. And I did not type it right. So right now, so far what we got typed in is not right. So let me go ahead and actually reverse the command. I think I got it mixed up over here. So this is where, again, I'm not a network admin by any means. This is not my trade. I'm a sysadmin. And so this is something I'm just remembering as I go along. So now that we set to DHCP route, we should be able to go back up the up arrow until we get to the interface IP brief. Show interface IP brief. So we're gonna go there. So we got a DHCP up, but it's not assigned to an IP address yet. So that's what we need to troubleshoot, and figure out why it's not assigned to an IP address. So, but we did configure it. It is up. We just gotta figure out when it's gonna show up with the IP address. Because if without an IP address, then we're actually not able to get anywhere. So this is where we are actually gonna be stuck at it. And we're gonna just refresh it. But it's not changing much, is it? So we're not doing a whole lot, anything, if anything else. So we need to just to go ahead and actually reconfigure this or wait for this, see what we're doing wrong. So let me check the port where we actually plug this in. Make sure I plugged in, our first uplink port to the right port from the WAN. So let's see here. Let's take a look at the switch. I think I know the problem. So our IP that we're supposed to be getting from DHCP is supposed to be 192.168.1.5, 1.155, or something along the 150 range. And we have already subnet utilized for the management. So we got to change the IP address for the subnet on the manager interface, because the manager interface right now, it's our problem. It's actually causing us an issue. So let me change this right now. So let's go to interface. We're going to go to M0/0. We're going to have to do this right now. So on the manager interface, we're going to change the IP address to what we was going to do before. So we was going to go ahead and change this to the 100.2. Or 100, yeah, we're going to make it to 100.2 actually. That's what we're going to make it into. So let's go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to have to look at my thing. So I hope I didn't close it. But anyways, so what I had to do was I had to actually change it to some things, because in this case, my management IP was actually pointed to DHCP pool, and we couldn't have that, because with DHCP, that means it was getting the 192.168.1.1, and that 1.1 is what we're going to get the outside IP from our WAN link for port 0, G0/0. So changing this M0/0 to something else was necessary. I'm going to update our spreadsheet because, I have changed a couple things. So I did it to .3 instead of .2. It will not let me do .2. So I did it .3, and it's fine because it is a one change. It's not going to be a big deal. And so I'm just updating this. So now we change that to that. We should get our IP, static IP now, if everything is still set up right. So we're going to do, show IP, show interface. Let's just go up arrow, and we're going to get that. Show interface IP brief. So that's changed, but we're still not getting our TCP. So what's the problem? This is where we're gonna actually need to do some little deep dive on that. And the deep dive is going back to interface, and we're gonna shut down the port and turn it back on for the G0/0. Shut down. And then we're gonna shut it back on. Shutdown is shut down right now. If I do show IP brief, you're gonna see it. The port is shut down. It is DCP, but it's administratively down. So we're gonna go ahead, turn it back on. By go into the interface again, and then I'm gonna do no shut. That should be able to reset it. Sometimes we may have to reboot the switch, So, but we'll see what we gotta do. We will do what we gotta do. That's for sure. So it's gonna take some time too, as we turn it on. So we'll wait. And I'm also monitoring this in our backend in our modem, cable modem or / fiber modem, to see if this is changing. So we're monitoring. So far, nothing is changing, and we still are in the limbo. But this is what this is what I decided to do, and so. Even though Cisco networking is not my strong suit, I wanted to see if I can remember and challenge myself basically. So obviously, there's a pending. So as you can see over here now, we were able to get the DCP from the WAN. I had to do some little reboot, and I also had to make sure that this management IP wasn't conflicting anymore. So because you cannot have the same IP subnet for two ports, you have to make sure they're different. So this, by us changing this to that 103, and then this was able to get the DCP. So now we're halfway there. We're gonna now configure our second port, which is G0/1, and it's gonna be able to get configured with the IP address. Let me go back, refresh my memory of what IP we chose to do that for that. So we're gonna go ahead configure this with the 10.1.1.1. So that's what we're gonna do, 10.1.1/24 subnet. So let's go ahead and do that. So and then we're gonna set the routes and everything else. So we're gonna go ahead and go connect to the new interface. The new interface we're dealing with right now is going to be interface, and I gotta make sure I spell it right, otherwise we're gonna have an issue. So interface G0/1. That's our interface, or I actually did not spell interface right. Come on, one hand typing. Interface G0/1. I'm typing interface the whole thing, but I could just easily type in, something else. So now in this stage, we're gonna name this interface inside. I'm gonna have to type in name if inside, and by default, if the name is spelled correctly, it should set the security level for us to 100. There you go. It does it for us. The next thing we're gonna go ahead is gonna be assign IP address. So we're gonna do IP address 10.10.1.1. We're gonna do no shut to make sure the ports turn back on, and then we're gonna go ahead, and the next portion is gonna be enabling for the port to have a DCP allocation and also DNS and so forth. So it's gonna be a little bit of a doing. So now we're gonna check IP brief again by going back to the basic. Yeah, so show interface IP brief. So we should see here the IP is assigned, but it says down. So we need to make sure why is it down. So let's see, am I connected to the right? So it still says down. I'll tell you, I didn't have the cable plugged in all the way. So now it should be, if I do brief again, show IP brief again, it should be up now. So my Ethernet cable to my laptop wasn't connected. So still we're saying down. So now let's see. G0/1. Let's make sure I did turn it on, because sometimes I have to make sure that it is indeed turned on. The interface G0/1. No shut. I think I may have done shutdown, maybe no shut. And then let's see here. So it's down, but it's actually up now. So like the other one is down, but it's not shut down. So we're gonna figure out why is it still down. So that's what we're gonna need to troubleshoot, and we will do it because we can. So let's see here. That's our management here. This IP. I think I may have shut down this port on the device. Let me see. That port on my laptop may be shut down. So look for the port. We got a lot of things disabled over here. That's fine. That is fine. It's actually not getting me any connection type over there. So I'm wondering. Yeah, it's not showing up the other one, and that's why we're having this problem. So it could be that I'm using a bad cable, or my USB, I'm using one of those USB to Ethernet cable, and it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So it's still not detecting it. Anyways, before we do anything else, there you go. The cable was not properly connected to it. Now if we go back here, you can see that there should be another thing showing up. So I do see a link light coming up. So it should be the one that's a Real Talk USB. So yeah, this should be the one. So we just gotta. So we should be good now. If I do IP brief, we should be able to say up and up. There we go. up and up. So, but still, we're not good to go yet. We're gonna have to make sure this, you know, port is actually able to distribute DHCP address. So then that's the next piece. And I actually compile all this already to in a code for us. So I'm just gonna copy and paste just to make it easier for us, as we've been doing this for about, you know, almost an hour now. Mainly because we have to wait for things. So let's go ahead, DHCP. So the first thing I'm gonna go ahead is gonna be, go ahead, type in DHCPD and then paste this in. So, but before we do that, I want to make sure that you do this now. You don't make mistake that sometimes we do on the in the world of learning Cisco. So I will basically want to make sure that you select your interface again, just to make sure that you are not doing this on a different interface. And then the IP address, I'm gonna actually change the IP address to allocation to something a lot less. So I'm gonna say 50. Give me from 50 to 200. That should be 150 IP address, and that should be plenty for us. So I'm gonna hit inside and hit enter. The next thing I'm gonna do is copy the second command, which is gonna be setting up a DNS server. So DHCPD command is very handy. I just compiled this already, so there you go. And the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead, set the lease to expire this mount. Then the next thing we're gonna go ahead is gonna be timeout the ping. Then the last few things gonna be setting our domain. But this is basically a standard thing. I want to keep it. And then finally, without this command, it's not gonna work. So we're gonna need to set this to make sure that we're good to go. So now I should be getting a DHCP in one of my NICs here, and still it's not there yet, but let's come on here, double click, and I might have to do like a IP config or even turn off the port, turn it back on sometimes. So let me just go ahead and actually do this one. Let's go ahead. We're gonna disable, and then we're gonna enable back. It's enabled back, and then we can do IP config. /all. There's gonna be Wi-Fi IP address showing up here, and there's also gonna be the other one. So let me see if the other one showed up, the 10. Huh. Did I make a mistake there somewhere? Yeah, it's not showing up there yet. Let me make sure that the DHCP is not set to static somewhere. I did probably set this port to static, so let me remove that static port. So that's definitely a problem because I set it to static. So let me obtain it from DHCP. And then we're going to wait for it to see if it actually obtains the address from DHCP. Not yet. Disable. Enable. No DHCP yet. We do have to do a couple more, but we're waiting for JCP to show up. Can we get it showing up here? See, over here is what we're looking at. This is the port we're looking at. And right now we got no IP showing up over there. So we need to figure out why. But I think I know why anyway. So let's come over here. Run IB brief. Am I doing this on the right interface? Yes, I am. So we're still waiting for it. Usually it takes a little bit. I wonder if I can shut down the port and turn it back on. Let me go ahead and do that. And then no shut. And then we're gonna do no shut. Okay. And then we're gonna come back here. No IP yet. Okay, so I was messing up. I was messing with the wrong port. This is my right port. That's not my right port. So I basically was messing up big time. But we can see here we got our DCP. And we also got internet. So let's do this again. Let me go ahead and actually do CLS here. Clear everything. IP config. /all. So now we're gonna see that we got a IP of .50, and then we got that's a gateway. We got a DCP set up to Google. I do want to change my DCP actually now because I don't like Google DHCP. I like OpenDNS better. So I'm gonna just change this to the OpenDNS because I noticed that sometimes Google DNS is like flaky. So let's do 28.67.220 or 222.222. All right. So we're gonna hit. That's fine. We don't have to save that, or we're gonna hit save. That's no problem. But we can get to the internet. You can see here. This is my internet. It's working. Let me turn off Wi-Fi. Or I'm gonna hit disconnect. If a computer actually behaves over here, because if I turn off Wi-Fi, actually I forgot. That's how we are connected to RDP from the computer, so it won't be good. So we're gonna need to turn Wi-Fi back on because by default our routes are not set for us to be able to do what we want to do. So let's go ahead and turn Wi-Fi back on before, so we can go back to our. So right now, to summarize what we just did, we got a new IP address. Instead of 251.55, we got an IP address of 234. Again, this is the ACP will change. And then we were able to set up this for us, no problem. And now what we just need to do is configure the rest, but we will do that in another episode. For now, I think we got plenty done. and I'm excited for the progress so far. So let's connect to this machine, back to the machine that has the connection set up. So let's close that out. So yeah, so that's what we got going on. I'm gonna just change the DHCP to match what we wanted to match here. So let's go ahead, copy this DHCPD IP or interface G0/0. Oops, that's the wrong interface. That's what I'm saying. You just gotta make sure you don't change it in the wrong interface. That's our DCP, so you don't wanna make anything. And then we just do that. And so technically speaking, there you have it, guys. We have done it. And now if I do show IP brief, you're gonna see, already you're seeing it, but I'm gonna run it again for you. But yeah, we were able to do a lot. So in this video, we're gonna summarize for you what we did, and just so you know. And so this is the two things we have going on. And so in summary, because we've done a lot, we went ahead, connected our Cisco ASA to one of our WAN link in the AT&T modem, and I have like basically an old modem here. After that, we got an IP address and of 192.168.1.234. But before we got the IP address, we had a conflict with our ASDM IP being 192.168.1.1, so we had to change that to 100.3. And after that, we got we rebooted the switch. We got a WAN link of this default IP DHCP for our port is G0/0. After that, we will configure G0/1 with this IP. We set up as a DHCP from 10. We set up a DHCP to basically, we set up a DHCP to 10.1.1.50 to 10.1.1.200. So that's what we end up getting at. Obviously, I'm gonna make sure this is a little bit better readable. So this is what we did. This is our DHCP. So yeah, that's what we end up doing. So, and after that, then basically, we're gonna do the rest the next time. So this was it. I was really, enjoyed learning slash, refreshing my memory on Cisco. By all means, I'm not a Cisco admin, but you can see this is something that anybody can do. You're just gonna have to apply yourself, and I hope you learned something. And if you wanted to try something, just don't be afraid to do it. That's the biggest advice I can give you. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't liked this, if you haven't liked or if you like this type of content, please like, subscribe. It will help us so much. Have a great rest of the day, and please stay tuned for the next Cisco content. Take care. Peace.